Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting for January 6, 2025. Welcome to the new year. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Just like the old year.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will open up the open forum portion of the meeting. Anyone here for open forum?
Okay, I'll let you know.
With that, I will close the open forum portion of the meeting. We'll get right into our 6 o'clock appointments. Discuss financial challenges impacting East Bridgewater with state representatives, senators, and a representative from Plymouth County Retirement. Folks can come up to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, you're fine. I would quickly want to apologize. Senator Brady is not feeling well, and Representative Plouffe is with her husband. As you know, Brockton has suffered 2 losses in their fire department. Her husband's a firefighter, so she is with her husband and family at this time. So she does apologize that she couldn't be here tonight. I know the senator as well apologizes for his inability to be here. He's unfortunately home sick.
Okay.
So you got us.
Okay, if you can just give us your name again, sir.
My name is Parek Ladin. Good evening, Ms. Select Board. P-A-D-R-A-I-C, Ladin, L-O-D-O-N. I'm the Executive Director of the Plymouth County Retirement Board.
One of the things that we're just trying to clarify, because we've been hearing different stories around town from different people, that the situation that we're having with Plymouth County Retirement is just an East Bridgewater problem, that somehow East Bridgewater created this problem for the town, and we're out there all by ourselves, and every other town is just doing fine, they don't have any problems at all. So what I'm looking for is, can you give us a background, as brief as you can, on where the situation came from, what we are, where we are for the next 6 years, what East Bridgewater is doing, what other towns are doing at the same time, are other towns in the same situation as us? Money would be different based on a whole bunch of different areas there. But just to make sure that everyone understands that this is a county thing, and it's probably a state thing, not just Plymouth County. And that's what we're looking for, clarification from the people that know.
Okay, Mr. Sheedy. In a nutshell, we have 54 units that report into the Plymouth County Retirement Association. Each of them, as you know, is different, and the cities are different, the towns are different, the state is different. So there's no one answer as to why this is all coming to a head, so to speak. In a nutshell, very briefly, I can't cover it all because we would be here all night. And the math is very confusing, as you know. But we were originally to be fully funded, the Plymouth County Retirement Association, by 2029, right? So we moved it out to 2031 because our regulators, PERAC, and our annuity people basically required it. And they believed that the new mortality table that we were required to use was more accurate. But also using that new mortality table, it increased our unfunded liability a lot, right? So astronomically, so the board felt it was prudent to push it out, to soften the blow on all the towns, to push it out another 2 years, spread that hit, so to speak, over a period of 2 years. So we've moved a fully funded date from 2029 to 2031. Fully funded means basically that all the pensions from the past are paid up to date, this is very simply put, and then you're just going on paying forward the normal costs, the pensions of everybody at the table and everybody in Plymouth County who works for the public service. So the increase of the appropriations also based on payrolls of each community. Increase in staff or payroll will cause an increase in appropriations, increase in money. With inflation and everything else, that's unfortunately what happens. The average increase for all of the PCRA units, Plymouth County Retirement Association, about 77.5%. And I think East Bridgewater is right there. I mean, I think they're right at 7.5%. So obviously, if you're above that, your appropriation goes up. If you're below that, your appropriation is lower, right? Or the increase is lower, so to speak. So if you keep it at the average of 7.5, will be funded by 2031, and then the appropriation, as I showed you in that handout I gave you from our report, it basically plummets from 2031 to 2032. It goes, you know, this is for the whole county, so it is kind of confusing to carve out just East Bridgewater, but it goes down to normal costs of everyone's retirement. So it's about, at that point, it's really about 20% of what you pay now. The option, you know, that you have certain options, it is not, I can't tell you it's not East Bridgewater's fault, but it's really not East Bridgewater's fault. This is a county-wide, statewide, citywide, everything, every system is facing, I believe, this same challenge of, you know, trying to be fully funded without kicking the can down the road. The easy thing is to say, okay, we'll just push it out till 2040, but then, like a mortgage, right, you end up paying a lot more in the end, you know, so, I would not sit here and tell you it's an East Bridgewater problem. It's a problem, but it's not your fault, right, in my opinion, for what it's worth. You know, you can also, I mean, if extra money were laying around somewhere, you could pre-fund it as well. If you get a big settlement on something to East Bridgewater's benefit, you know, and if you could pre-fund some of your pension liability, and you're basically getting a return of 7.875%. That's what we use as our benchmark. So that's better than the 3%, obviously, you would get from a bank. You know, another option is, and some units do that, not a lot. You know, some of the smaller units do pre-fund some of their liability, but that's a very tough thing to do when you're making ends meet now, and they're getting further apart. But also, another option is the pension obligation bonds, which I know has been floated around. And, you know, but keep in mind, the retirement board itself has been trying to do that since 2008, and it doesn't get any traction, you know, so that's a more difficult decision for the town of East Bridgewater.
Charlie had mentioned that in our latest report. that
Yeah,
we
in-
probably
I
not
think
be
it's
aware
off
of
the
it.
table.
There's a few towns that do it, a few systems, but it's very rare.
Right.
And we don't have a position on that, Mr. Sheedy, so, you know, anyone, you know, you're always invited to a meeting, Plymouth County Retirement Board meeting, if you have time. You know, we do have excellent investment returns over the years. 1.5 billion is the fund now. You know, we try to protect our member units as much as we can. It's a very member-centric board, and I do want to give kudos to the East Bridgewater treasurer for showing up at the advisory council meeting last month, which gave us a quorum, which then allows us to work, you know, for our budget and everything. But I mean, the short answer is, it is, you know, 2031, you know, December 31st, 2031, it's a happy day, because the next day, it all plummets, but it's also 6 years away, so.
Those of you that will still
We're
be
not gonna all
alive.
still be sitting in these
Well,
seats, I don't
yeah.
think.
But that's in a very brief nutshell.
Okay,
And
but-
again, it has to do with things you can't control either, you know what I mean? So, you know, I've been in this business for a while, and you know, the city of Boston, I was in the Boston Retirement Board for 10 years, and the appropriations are up and down there as well. You know, you hire more people, you have to, you know, and then it just happens, and the appropriations go up, changes every year. And our latest valuation is what you have in front of you.
Okay, so again, just to reemphasize, we'll stick with Plymouth County. This is a Plymouth County. There is no city or town in Plymouth County that's not the same numbers, but they're all in the same situation as East Bridgewater is in. This is not something that we did, it's not something we came behind, you know, and didn't pay our bills, didn't send you money, didn't do any of that stuff. So the naysayers out there that are talking that way, if we could quiet them down and say, you know, this is just part of what's happening.
Right, and we've received multiple phone calls or emails about the new, the appropriation schedule,
Yeah.
which is fair, because
Right.
again, it's changed, and I did have a report, if we stayed at 2029 with the new mortality table, it's really heinous, the appropriations then. It really was unbelievably, you know, difficult numbers to wrap your head around.
Okay.
So no, there's nothing that East Bridgewater did, you were up to date on all your contributions to us, so it was unavoidable from the pension standpoint.
Right, which would be unavoidable for anything we could have done differently. Okay,
Unless you want to prepay,
no, we're good.
yeah, so, yeah,
If we could prepay, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
that's right, so that's
Okay.
really, I mean, at this point, that would be the only option you have to kind of bring that down.
Okay, appreciate that. The reason that I had asked the state representative and state senator to join us is a couple of things that I've been asking about for a while. Because, again, just to make sure, and I'm sure they all know that, you know, all the towns in their district, you know, are going through the same thing. We were looking, one of the things that we finally did get some answers today is the $200 million that has been collected from legalizing gambling. When and if and how much will we know, East Bridgewater and the rest of your districts will be getting out of that, and will that be a part of next year's budget?
You know, the hope is that it would be. We haven't got any clarifying information from the administration yet as far as how much or when that money would be distributed. My assumption would be that it would hopefully be for this year's budget as well, because they've already were able to collect. It's been over $200 million since January 31st of 2023 and March 10th for the online stuff. So the hope is that we see some of it. And I think my understanding is that administration and finance is working tirelessly on this, on how it's gonna be distributed, what that's gonna look like, and when it's gonna come down the pipeline. And as soon as we know, you guys will know. And we'll keep that door and that conversation completely open.
Representative, do you have that formula on how much of that 200 million percentage-wise goes to?
To the cities and towns of
Right.
the Commonwealth,
Well,
so it's about 27.5%, which to the number of the over 200 million, looks to be about 58 million, a little over 58 million will be going back to the cities and towns.
Okay.
So I don't know how that's gonna be distributed. My assumption is gonna probably be around the same formulas of the unrestricted aid that we get. But again, I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to, you know, give you false hope in any way, shape, or form. But we do have the communication out there with A&F waiting for their response.
Okay,
So, and we fully understand at the state level, as far as Senator Brady and Representative Pluff and myself, how much our cities and towns are really hurting this fiscal year. The state's hurting too, you know, and we've seen it, and we've been advocating for much change on how we're spending our money up at the state level. But unfortunately, with some of, granted, we've had some things like this with the gambling and the marijuana resources that we're getting, but we've also lost a lot of resources in other ways. So we're keeping a very close eye on when the governor releases her budget, and what that's gonna look like, and how we can advocate for East Bridgewater, as well as my other towns that I represent, to get their fair share between local aid, you know, Chapter 70 and Chapter 90, especially, you know, in those three key areas, to be able to get you guys over the hump. And I know, and we're feeling it too, up at the state level.
okay. Peter?
No, that's pretty self-explanatory, you know, when it comes. I'm sure Allison and the rest of the crew will let us know.
Yeah, you guys know Catherine is always,
Yep.
you know, accessible, as well as myself, to a phone call, an email, what
I do.
have you. Huh?
I do.
You do. We know, you call, you're never shy at calling, that's for sure, Mr. Chairman, but,
I just stalked Catherine at the grocery store.
I mean, you can find her. She's an East Bridgewater resident, you can definitely find her. She is, out and about at all the local events. So we are always available, especially when it comes to, we know that the unfortunate part is, right, you guys do your budget before we come out with ours. So you're kind of, you're playing with almost monopoly money, right? You don't know what the budget's gonna really look like. You can have an idea based on the way the governor releases hers. But as you've seen in the past, it changes between the House and the Senate on the debate issues. So our hope is that we can advocate for more funding and to get you guys over that hump, but we are here.
even if you can do some more pushing and shoving and kicking to get the damn budget done earlier, so.
Yeah, I
we know
mean,
where and I know that's been ongoing since I was
have you
two,
seen pigs fly?
occasionally, but
Yeah,
I
I
was
was
in a
gonna say, you
stupor
know,
at the
it's-
time.
Hopefully, but it's, from my past experiences, we're right there until the clock strikes midnight. And when I say midnight, it usually stops at midnight and it goes until about 10 a.m., at the end of July. So the hope is that we get it done before that. But as we've seen in the past, and hopefully it's never anything like COVID again, with the way the budget took and how we had to do that budget. But I'm hopeful, maybe with, not so much money to play with, we'll get something done sooner than later.
Okay. Charlie, do you have anything?
No, I mean, as you mentioned, there are a number of cities and towns are dealing the same thing. We have, I won't say it's a good plan, but we have a plan in place, but for the next few years, for those 6 years, or 6 lean years, that we will draw down on our reserves just to keep things, one hopes, our service levels at the same level. Both, the town officials know what's happening in other communities, we'll read about it in the newspaper, we'll see it on, the social media and such. So we're aware that other towns are looking at overrides, not probably feasible here in East Bridgewater. They're looking at layoffs possibly, which we would like to avoid. And the only way we ended up doing it was to use our reserves, which is not sound business practice. But it was a choice between that and in fact doing layoffs, lowering our service levels, and we've gone with that. It won't help our bond rating or anything like that, but maybe we can get through this. And maybe things will be a bit rosier maybe a few years down the road. But what we're looking at is a deficit even for the operating budget, even with using the reserves. We've asked departments to lower their budgets by about 1% from last year's levels. Some changes due to people moving in steps and grades and such. But we're going to be drawing down our reserves for free cash. We're using our reserves in stabilization, fund stabilization projects and such. And we're hoping, obviously, when we get to 2031, one of our jobs will be, or our successors' jobs will be to not then go and say, oh, there's money, let's spend it. No, we're going to have to replenish our reserves. We're going to have to get back into a better financial picture. So rework our capital budget, put money back into stabilization, free cash, maybe spend a little bit of operations. We're playing at the margins right now, so any aid we can get, any assistance we can get from the county or from the state is going to be very, very welcome. We know, again, you have that more information than we do, but we can follow the state trends and their finances and revenue pictures and know that things are okay. They're not great like they would have been a few years ago. So we're going to see very limited amounts of state aid increases. Our big worry is on Chapter 70, in that we're one of those baseline communities getting only a certain number of dollars per pupil. The town was very gratified to even get the 104, I think it was, per pupil rather than 30 or 40 or 50. It made a difference in the school budget, but it will be a big challenge for the school. We're coming out of, thankfully we did not use our ARPA money for the most part for operations. It was mostly for capital, so we're not seeing a situation other communities might have where they were using that for operations and then suddenly, okay, the money's gone, what are we going to do now? So we're not in that hole. But it's going to be very, very challenging. We looked at pension obligation bonds. I'll talk to the board a little bit more about that. But the downsides of that are so numerous that it's not reasonable for us to be thinking about that. So that won't be an option either. And I don't know whether anybody else besides ourselves has approached the retirement system about doing that. I don't know if anybody's tried it.
I'm aware of that.
So, but we appreciate, as the months go by, we'll appreciate the continuing of the dialogue on both sides, or on all sides, as we get through this.
And as you guys know too, we work very closely with Melanie as well, and keeping an eye on grants and bonds that come out that might be beneficial to the town. Melanie is constantly in communication with myself and Catherine, so I think that's also a bonus for the town, that that relationship is there and so smoothly working, that if she finds out something before we do, or if we find something out, we send it over to her, but we do work very closely with her.
I was just about to ask Melanie if she had anything to add to this conversation, but
She's too busy talking to Catherine.
She's
We're
having a
having a
sidebar.
sidebar.
I don't know, maybe
Oh.
Jim from Senator Brady's office might wanna.
Just send us the note when it's time to put in for possible earmark priorities.
Yep, and we're gonna have those conversations, I think, a little bit earlier than the past years, just because we know how kind of restricted we're gonna be on those type of earmarks. So I think setting up a meeting with the senator, Representative Plouffe, and myself might be a beneficial thing to have kind of offline with either the chairman and you, Charlie, to have those conversations about what the town could benefit from earmarks and being in a reasonable ask, just because of, you know, the type that we may not get earmarks this year, which is unfortunate.
I mean, I know, you know, for instance, with the Council on Aging, and David knows better than anybody how popular the Meals to Go.
Oh, yeah, we know. Nancy is very much,
Yes.
always she's a very strong advocate for our seniors here in East Bridgewater, and she does great work, whether it be through the earmarks that we receive at the state level, or also through funding that she is able to get in other ways. But she definitely does a great job, you know, especially during COVID. I had the opportunity to help hand out those meals, and to see the impact it was having on our community here in East Bridgewater is near and dear to our hearts. So we're always, that's not even if it's not in your ask, we do ask for it on the state level.
But also on the library, I mean, this was before me, but the town had made the decision not to do renovations or major expansion, whatever, for the library several years ago. But nevertheless, it's an old building, even with the expansion, and it needed some work. And your help and our legislative delegation's help in providing funding, even on an incremental basis, $25,000, $50,000
Yep.
a year, has made a substantial change in the building itself. Being, we had a separate roof project that we funded ourselves, but a lot of the weatherization projects, the improvements in some of the mechanical systems there have made a big difference for the staff and for the patrons who are there. I think the library is an extremely valuable institution for the town, and
Of course.
you can't have the books there if you can't maintain the building.
Yep.
And that libraries and books will get you through times when you don't have money, better than when money will get you through times without libraries. And we
Hear,
need the
hear.
library, and we need to keep it maintained.
It's one of my
Nobody.
favorite
So,
quotes.
Yeah.
And we were definitely grateful to be able to help in that sense as well. You know, doing the tour of the library was definitely informative for my office, as well as the senator's office and former Representative Cassidy as well. So, of course, we're always open to assisting in any way that we can to kind of offset that cost and do things that might be small but very impactful projects here in the town. And Jim, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add from Senator Brady.
Actually, I just got these numbers from my chief of staff, and I was able to share them with you.
Right.
With, some are solid and some are projected. But any way we can help, please reach out to our,
we will.
Yeah, and we work very closely with each
Yeah.
other, as you guys know, and have seen in the past. And I am looking forward to working with Representative Plouffe. I think she'll be a great asset. She's the former Representative Cassidy's aide, so she's very well versed on how all this process goes. She's not new to it at all. So I think she'll be a good asset as well.
Okay. Melanie, before we let these people go, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think we covered it all.
Okay, thank you, and thank you everyone for being here. Allison, Jim.
Thank you all.
Thank
Glad
you.
you bet.
Happy New
Catherine,
Year.
again, you know, you might hear from me in the future.
I don't say might, you're definitely going to be hearing.
All right, thank you,
She's
folks, we
gonna block your
appreciate it.
number.
Stay
Your
welcome.
face. She's-
Thank you. Happy New
number's
Year,
blocked.
everybody.
Okay. We can move on to the Housing
We're
Authority.
passing that over. They don't have a quorum.
Okay. Public hearing we'll have to hold off on, so let's go into our action items, Madam Clerk.
All right, I make a motion to approve the date and schedule for the May 12th, 2025 annual and special town meeting and open the warrant.
Second.
Any discussion?
This is pretty much a traditional schedule.
Right.
We are asking, in fact, the budget forms have already been sent out. We're asking the departments to get them in by the end of this week. Then you'll have a series of finance and select board and capital planning committee meetings for review of those articles. The warrant for the town meeting, the annual town meeting will close the beginning of March. The warrant for the special will close a month later. And then, again, final review of the warrant with the interested parties. Town meeting will be on May 12th. The town election will be on May 17th.
Okay. Any discussion, questions?
Nope.
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to approve the Fedoroff property land donation.
Second.
So what happened was Mr. Fedorov had gone to the Registry of Deeds to register the transfer of the land. This was a land donation from him to the town, and what they said was it was not enough that the town meeting approved the land donation. The board has to also do that. So I think we have the form.
Yep.
Right, okay. So there'll be a form to sign and such, along with the certified copy of the vote at the town meeting. Once you sign that and approve that, it'll go back to Chris, and Chris will, it will go back to Mr. Fedorov, and Mr. Fedorov, and we'll go back to the registry, and we'll get this completed.
Okay. Okay, good. All those in favor?
Aye. We're passing over number 3. I make a motion to approve the request from Fire Chief Timothy Harron for the quarterly ambulance billing abatements through November 2024 in the amount of $93,916.54.
Second.
Any discussion? This is their annual,
Quarterly.
yep, quarterly, I'm sorry. Getting higher. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to approve renewing the contract with the town of Lakeville for the town to utilize the Lakeville Animal Shelter for housing stray and surrendered dogs. This agreement will expire on December 31st, 2025.
Second.
Discussion on that, Charlie?
Not really, no. We've had this agreement in place for a number of years. It's worked out very, very well. We don't have to run our own kennel system. And somebody, in fact, yes, we spend money, obviously, if we have dogs brought there, but it's a much easier system than running our own.
Clean it too.
I don't know, I don't ask.
Oh, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I make a motion to approve the reproducing of the town of East Bridgewater flag.
Second.
So Bristol Aggie had contacted the town. They, I guess, were trying to put flags up for all the towns that they have students from. We asked around, and nobody knew, that we ever had a flag per se produced. But I know we have a flag, for instance, up in the Hall of Flags up at the State House with all the other 350 cities and towns. If my memory's correct, it's simply our town seal on a white background, that's all it is. So I'm not asking for the board to hold a competition or invent another flag or something like that.
I already had.
There
that
was
ready to
discussion
submit,
about that
too.
a while ago.
So what I would be asking, and we'll get, then we can get to the next one, is to, using that, in essence, creating our flag on that basis, and then we can move on to the next.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then to say to Bristol Aggie, number 7, to say, yes, they certainly should be able to find a vendor that can reproduce the flag of whatever size they need. They had asked if, they would do this at their own expense.
Okay.
So just need a.
I make a
board-
motion
Yes.
that we approve the request from Bristol County Agricultural High School to display the town of East Bridgewater flag.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I'd like to
Pension,
hold off on those and let's get into our public hearing.
the hearing's
Oh,
for
that's
6:45.
6:45, sorry.
We can't, yeah.
Continue on, Madam Clerk.
Pension obligation bond discussion.
I'm
We
not
have
gonna-
one.
Well,
We have an
sort of.
obligation.
I mean, we have a pension, we have an obligation, we will not have a bond.
There you go.
Good talk.
Melanie, Megan, and
Okay,
I.
that's it. We'll
Okay.
Thank you
move
for
on.
coming to my TED Talk.
Move on.
Okay, fine. But just in 60 seconds or less, Melanie, Megan, and I did meet with our Hilltop Securities or our bond advisors to go over the advantages and disadvantages of having a pension obligation bond. What this is the town goes out, bonds our liability, which is about $25 million as of the last valuation approximately. We would borrow the full amount, the money goes to Plymouth, they invest it, and everything should be hunky-dory. The problem is, if you go out and bond money, then you have to pay it back. So during the years, probably until 2040 likely, we would in fact have another bond to pay. Now, the hope would be that you'd pay less in principal and interest than what you would have to Plymouth County during those 6 years. However, markets can fall, markets can rise, interest rates can go up, interest rates can go down, and you run all those risks. And what Hilltop looked at was saying they did not think that we would have a substantial amount of savings in doing so, and that we would have borrowing costs far greater than normal for most of our bonds, because this bond we considered far riskier. We're not buying something that's tangible. We're buying, simply funding a liability and having to pay it back.
Buying time is what we were trying to do.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're right,
Right?
which isn't
Which may or may not work.
possible to buy, as it
Right.
turns out.
And we would need approvals from town meeting, we would need approvals from administration finance, we would need special legislation. And as Adrian mentioned, they've tried at Plymouth County for, what's it now, it'll be 16 years or so, one way or the other, and have not been successful. And I guess it's probably a fair amount of doubt that we would be able to jump over all the hurdles that are needed. So my recommendation is that as much as was an interesting option to look at, that the town not pursue this.
Well, we appreciate you looking into it. Discuss the work from home policy.
Right, this has been on the board's radar, I guess, for several years. We're trying to get the personnel policies updated. This is one of the aspects of it. I'm not asking for the board to approve it tonight, because it only sent the current draft over to the board during the weekend. But I did want to bring it back up to the board, so they understood that we do have something that we can work with. And if the board wanted to make any revisions to it, change sort of some of the philosophical aspects of it, how permissive we want to be or non-permissive, and then approve it at a later time, that would be great, either at the meeting on the 13th or the meeting on the 27th.
Okay. I've read it over, it does seem like it's, it's done very, very well. I think it almost covers everything. We may just have to have a little bit of open conversation, because, again, there is always possibly more exceptions to the rules. We'd have to have a clause that says, but these exceptions, will be taken, as the whole thing is one at a time.
I do want to thank Rebecca and Caitlin for doing almost all the work on this. I took a few swings and a couple revisions, but they did the fundamental part.
Well, thank you for your efforts.
Are you happy with it? Does it cover what you want it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one that the board had to look at a few years ago seemed to make it more feasible, more possible to have work-from-home situations. And in terms of talking with the board during the last year, my understanding from the board is that they would want, certainly there should be a way of doing it, but it should be on a very rare occasion, not on a frequent occasion. And I understand, there may be circumstances, Caitlin mentioned, for instance, even with a policy, we may have ADA situations. Someone breaks a leg, they could still be able to work. They're not ill, they're not physically ill, but they can't get here for whatever reason. In which case the board would then do an ADA exemption for that, to allow someone to continue to work from home. But hearing from the board during the last year, you don't want this, my understanding is you didn't want this to be done on a frequent basis by anybody. So we tried to nail in very specific things like, if you're sick, you're sick. Do not tell us that you're sick and you're gonna work from home. If you're so sick that you need to work from home, you're sick enough not to be working, take the sick leave, get well, and we'll move on from there, as an example. If you have a family emergency, you need, you're the one, you end up being the designated child care person, because your kids are sick and have to be home from school, but you need to be, again, take care of the kids.
Now, is there anything contractual problems by implementing this?
Well, this would apply to the non-union employees.
Right.
If we ever wanted it to handle a situation with union employees, we'd have to negotiate
Yeah.
that with the union, with the various unions. So in most cases, what we have are people working out in the field. We've not set up for work from home for any of the jobs.
Okay.
And I see that, like, so we addressed weather events that, like, if it's a snow day, it's a snow day.
Right.
You know. But what about the weather event, which maybe this is already covered anyways, but the weather event where somebody says, oh, the roads are bad, I don't want to come in, I'm going to choose to work from home? That would not be an option, right?
Unless
Because
the
they would have
board
had
had
to have
approved it.
planned that in advance. Okay.
Are there other agreements like this currently being worked in other towns? When you guys were doing this, did you come across?
I know that it's one of the frequent questions that comes up on the MMHR, the
Yeah.
Mass Municipal Human Resources listserv. People are always asking, what's your work from home policy? So I don't know, we got examples for the most part, but
No, I didn't get any examples. I think it's more kind of, you had COVID, a lot of people worked from
Right.
home. It's just kind of like that transition from COVID to, coming back full-time. And where do you draw the line with, I'm gonna work from home, or I'm gonna be in person type of thing.
I think, in different towns may take different attitudes about it, but
Right.
here in East Bridgewater, my understanding is the feeling is either A, you're a customer-facing employee, and the expectation is you're going to be there because residents and other interested parties are going to be visiting wherever you are and expect a human being to be there. In even those positions where it's more maybe working with other town employees, and some of that work might be able to be done from home, the preference is that we want you to be working with those employees in person, not on a remote basis. I mean, and, this can always be subject to change. If we went back to a COVID situation, for instance, and had to close the building, then we'll deal with that situation when we get there.
Right.
But at least we'll have a baseline document to work off of.
Yeah. Good.
Peter, anything?
No, that was it.
Discussed fire chief recruitment assessment proposal.
We had a proposal from, number 10.
Arrow Consulting and Associates?
Yeah. Just to go back over why we're doing this, the chief has, has filed notice that he's leaving from the town service in March. My recommendation has been that we do have some sort of recruitment and assessment center process. When I was in Halifax, I think we did it 3 or 4 times, and every time it worked great. So great that the people that we hired then left 3 or 4 years later because they were that good, and other towns said, ooh, we like this person. Now,
Well, much like the
but-
pension bond obligation,
Yeah.
when that happens.
Right.
yeah. I understand, so let's get a mediocre person and not, not have them leave,
And
okay,
this is the
fine.
same company that you used in Halifax?
No, it isn't, actually. But I went over the proposal, I went over, the number of communities, many of them very, very nearby, that have worked with this firm. The proposal's for under $10,000, so if the board wanted to approve it, we would not have to go out to bid to do this work. The advertising and would be done through our accounts, we would be paying the firm, and any background checks could be done by the police. I had checked with Chief Jenkins about that. So if the board wanted to approve that tonight, I could then, but the only other thing is I'll have to go to the Finance Committee tomorrow to get a transfer from the reserve fund to cover the costs. But it's a reasonable ask in that when we did the budget for 25, we did not expect this to be occurring.
This company comes highly recommended by other chiefs in the region
If you look at it.
that I've
yes.
spoken to, through, some contacts I have on a personal level. And Jack Barrow worked here. Was he an interim chief?
Late 90s, I think it was.
Yeah, he was an interim chief here for a while. Or maybe not even interim, but it was a very short time in the
I think 90s.
early 90s.
I don't
It was when
remember.
Diane Pacheco was library director, it was before I was director.
Okay.
It was a very short time, but I remember him from
Something you
that,
said?
from then. I was only the assistant director then, I had nothing to do with any of the
All
other
right, just
department
checking.
heads. But they do come very highly recommended by other chiefs.
So is there any type of a, once we get everything over, sign the contract, any idea how long they say this process normally?
I didn't check, I didn't check, I'll find out.
I didn't say anything specific, and I'm sure that there's a whole lot of different ways, how many candidates you get, so on and so forth.
I think it won't be a 6-month process, it might be a couple of months process.
So we might
think,
have
you know,
to
I think
appoint
they're,
chief.
given, I think whatever
The elevate.
time,
The elevate.
whatever time we need an interim will be fairly small. I mean, it would be a matter of weeks rather than months if we did need an interim.
That would be the deputy chief. would be that. Okay. So are we making
I would need the
I would
board to
put that in the
to
form of a
accept
motion that
the
we approve,
proposal and
and accept the fire chief recruitment assessment proposal from John Parrow and Associates.
just his resume, in fact, includes, it's from April of 91 to March of 94, he was the chief.
Oh, so it's longer than I
Really?
thought.
Wow.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Sorry.
Do you have any
That's it
right,
for action items.
announcements?
I don't have any announcements.
Sure?
Let me think.
Make some up? We got 3 minutes to kill here.
Lee, got anything?
We have a town meeting.
Oh, yeah, town meeting on Monday, special town meeting.
See?
Yep, Charlie updated the website today with kind of a description on the articles that are gonna be presented at special town meeting, 7 o'clock, East Bridgewater Junior Senior High School.
Are we meeting prior to that?
Yes, just, I think, 6:30, we probably have
Oh,
everything
okay.
posted, don't we, usually?
Um,
If there is, because
Sometimes
there's
there's
always
stuff we
something
We
on the
usually,
sign or
yeah, we
something.
post for all the, what's in, like, the finance, capital, and select board anyway,
Yeah.
for 6:30, just in case.
All right.
Charlie, did you wanna do?
Charlie,
your
anything,
administrative?
short announcements?
Yeah, just congratulations to the DPW of getting the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program Grant Award. John Haynes had mentioned that Lynn and Jennifer in his office were the primary folks who put this together. It's for $3,360 for the town's recycling program, so congratulations to them. On the monthly calendar idea, we had a resident had come in to suggest trying to better inform the townspeople about when meetings are held. Obviously, we've got the website calendar, all the meetings are posted there with the agendas, but many times they're only posted, the agendas are only posted 48, 72 hours in advance. And we do have many boards and committees, some which are on a very irregular schedule, some of which are on a regular schedule. The idea he had was that if, in the Council on Aging newsletter, we could post, okay, here's, it's a couple weeks in advance, and there's a lot of caveats, because cancellations, special meetings, rescheduling of meetings, everything happens. I mean, as an example, the board's meeting tonight, and not, then on the 27th is its next regular meeting outside of the little few minutes on the 13th, as an example. But to try and get the word out a bit better, and I talked to Nancy Hill, and they're able to we wouldn't put in a separate calendar, and we wouldn't merge it with the calendar that's in the COA newsletter to avoid any confusion, but be a simple text list of, okay, here's, 2 weeks in advance, we're doing this, so select board's meeting this night and this night, school committee's meeting this night, trustees are meeting this night, et cetera. And then put a big asterisk as to, don't depend on this. Check check.
Do not call.
We mean it, but not really.
Do not call the Council on Aging about the meetings, you can check the website. And, I probably, in July, put a note in that says, if you're finding this to be helpful, please contact me, and if we don't get anybody contacting me, I can say to Nancy, fine, we've, experimented, we've tried it out. There doesn't seem to be many people paying attention to this.
We'll have the electronic board at some point, right?
Right.
Yeah,
too.
that'll help too.
Which and we would post that, that should come up later this year, and then once we do have, we know when meetings actually are occurring.
Right.
We can post on the electronic sign, yeah. So, but that is gonna be my plan, working with.
And they have space for that
Yeah.
in their newsletter, is it not
Yeah,
gonna
that-
cost them more money
no.
or anything like that?
Nancy said they'd be able to fit it in.
Okay.
And I can work with Lee on producing the text boxes for each of the months, even, we'll check, we can check with the department, with the boards and committees that meet on a regular basis and confirm when they're meeting for the rest of 2025. And then, just like, we have in our agenda when we're meeting.
Yep.
Same thing for the other boards and committees, and we'll start there and work it that way.
Most of the larger boards and committees do send out like a annual, yearly calendar.
Right.
Right.
So that'll be easy to.
But many of them meet on a
Subject to
regular,
change.
finance
Right.
committee, for instance, has an irregular schedule
Right.
as an
Yep.
example. We wouldn't include them on that.
Yep.
Okay. We can now move into our public hearing for 6:45, Madam Clerk.
Notice is hereby given that pursuant to the requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, a public hearing will be held relative to application for amendment, change, or alteration of premises, Crichetti Oakdale Packing, Inc., premises 378 Pleasant Street. A public hearing will be held at the Town Hall First Floor Conference Room, 175 Central Street, East Bridgewater, on Monday, January 6, 2024, at 6:45 PM.
Gentlemen, welcome. Nice to see you gentlemen again. Anyone doesn't know, let me throw this in here. This is the people that are running Crochetti's for us on Pleasant
Who's that,
Street.
Russ?
For us.
Us.
I feel like it's for me personally, I don't
town.
know.
What they have done over the last few months for everything in this town is not enough words for us, so
That's
from
true.
the entire town, thank you.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
Now we will get into, what are you trying to do over there?
I was gonna say you were changing the name to Nug Light, you know? I-
Oh, the Nugget. So we want to open up the outlet, and along with that, what we'd like to do is extend our liquor license up to that, so we can.
Okay,
The idea being that any change of premises requires going through this,
Even though it's the
Re-
same address,
yeah.
Yeah,
it's
same
different
building.
buildings, so you have,
Actually, the building's attached,
right,
yeah.
okay.
But the footprint of where the alcohol will be there and be available for sale and such will be larger, just as, we have a restaurant and they expand or something like that, we have to change the premises on the license, so it goes through you all and the ABCC.
do you want to give the town just a little background on how you plan on utilizing that space?
We sell beer and wine, we've had for a while,
Right.
nothing really crazy, but we're opening up a warehouse in the back, and we want to have it up there as well. There's not a lot of room in our store right now,
Right.
and this gives us more room. You can actually breathe up there, everything's so tight in a smaller room, and that's what we're looking to do.
I think it's a great idea, and what you're doing back there is going to be tremendous help to the people around this area.
We hope so.
We hope so, yeah.
And now you're gonna keep the current
Yes.
storage, so it's just an expansion for
Yeah, it's
other,
expansion, we can't.
for the
fit what we
cinnamon
want.
rolls?
Yeah.
And the
It's actually
cinnamon
every-
rolls and the cream cheese?
It's actually everything we can't fit in the
We can't
existing
fit much in
store.
the store. We want to, not to get into it, but, families are struggling right now. And it's our goal to help families, go food shopping because they're getting killed at the supermarkets. It's just something, it's like a mission that we have.
We're able to get it
Yeah.
to them a little bit better.
There's
We
gonna
can
be-
buy better.
There's going to be an area set up there, from what I understand, also for people that have special needs,
Yes.
They
Yeah.
have, there's, like gluten-free, stuff like that. You'll have separate area to
Oh, yeah.
try to meet the needs of all these people also. So,
Yeah.
Not calorie free.
great idea.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine.
We don't care.
Hence the cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
Okay, great idea.
Yeah,
Peter,
right, let's keep moving on, keep
Yep.
doing what you're doing.
Terrific.
It's going well.
all those in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Look,
much.
we
Have
look
a-
forward
forward,
to
gentlemen.
the
Go
grand
forward.
opening.
Well, soon.
Yeah, we're shooting soon.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Great night.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
What else we got here? Anything good? Board discussion. Peter?
No, everything's good, on my end. All right, we gotta,
Wait.
have the zoning board meeting, right, ZBA this
CBA will be meeting on Wednesday, 7 PM over at the junior senior high school. Among the items on the agenda is continued hearing on the residences of Meadowbrook.
Okay.
Any idea, at any point in time, do we know when they think they're gonna wrap up these
Well,
discussions, or?
So the hearing itself, they can have the okay from all parties to continue at least for a couple more months.
Okay,
I don't think they'll close the hearing in January. They might close it in February, but then they have another 45 days
Right.
after that to make the decision.
correct, okay.
But, I'm not speaking for the ZBA when I
Okay.
say that.
That sounds good based on what I'm hearing. They expect 2 more meetings maybe, that should do it. Okay. All right. Vote to close the meeting, enter into executive session, and not to return to open session. Madam Clerk.
Yes, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, building commissioner, zoning enforcement officer, director of assessing, IT director, town accountant, town administrator, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Firefighters, superior officers, clerical, DPW, dispatchers, superior officers, patrol officers, library. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, as the chair has determined that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's litigating position in a matter involving the town of East Bridgewater versus Ritter Farm. Vote to close executive session and not return to open session. Aye, Carol Julius.
Aye, David Sheedy. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Happy
See you
New
at
Year,
town
everybody.
meeting next Monday at 7 o'clock.
Town meeting.